Today, we're going to talk about a case that has absolutely captivated and, frankly, haunted a country. It's the disappearance of two very young siblings, 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan, from their home in rural Nova Scotia. This is a story that has left a community and a nation just desperate for answers. So the story starts in a place called Lansdowne Station in Pictou County. Sources describe it as a pretty remote, quiet area. Lots of woods, thick brush, steep banks. Really just an ordinary, peaceful setting for what would turn into an absolutely unthinkable event. And that's really the question that just hangs over this entire case, isn't it? It's the one that investigators, the family, and the public have been asking for months now. So let's walk through the timeline of what we know. Okay, let's go back to that morning. It was Friday, May 2nd, 2025. 6-year-old Lily and her little brother, 4-year-old Jack, were reported missing from their home. They were actually home from school that day, apparently because Lily had a bit of a cough. So here's what we know from the family's account, pieced together from various media reports. The key window seems to be between 8 o'clock and 9:40 in the morning. The kids' mother and stepfather said they were in their bedroom, the kids were playing, and then they just went quiet. Their grandmother, who also lives on the property, remembers hearing them on the swings, but then she fell back asleep. And then, at 10:01 a.m., their mom, Malaya Brooks Murray, made that 911 call. Right away, in those first few hours and days, a massive search and rescue operation just exploded into action. The initial hope, of course, was that they just wandered off into the woods and would be found quickly. Those first 5 days were absolutely critical, and the response was huge. According to CBC News, by day 2, you had over 100 people on the ground, and that number quickly jumped to 160. I mean, they threw everything they had at this. Search dogs, drones, helicopters flying overhead. But after 5 days, with 0 confirmed sightings, the RCMP had to make the incredibly difficult call to scale back the official ground search. And this just brings home the raw, human toll of it all. Just 1 day after her kids were gone, their mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, spoke to CTV News. You can just feel the anguish in her words. It was a plea that just echoed across the entire country. Now, when the active search was scaled back, the work didn't just stop. No way. It changed. It transformed into this massive, long-term, major crimes investigation. And the scale of it is pretty staggering. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, investigators have gone through more than 760 tips from the public. They've had to review over 8,000 video files that were collected from cameras in the surrounding area. Think about that workload. And according to media reports, at least 54 people have been formally interviewed by police, and some of those interviews even involved polygraph tests. On top of all that, to try and shake loose some new leads, the government of Nova Scotia is offering a reward of $150,000 for any information that cracks the case. And then, more than 4 months into this whole thing, on September 19th, there was an update. And it was a tough one to hear. It sent a real chill through everyone following the case. Both Global News and CBC reported that the RCMP were going to start using cadaver dogs specifically trained to detect human remains. Now, this is a really crucial point. The RCMP were very clear that this did not mean they believed the children were deceased. They said it was just a comprehensive step to make sure every single possibility was covered and, in their words, that nothing is missed. It's a huge shift from the first search dogs, which, remember, were trained to follow the scent of a living person. So while all of this was going on behind the scenes with the police, this very quiet, deliberate investigation, a completely different story was erupting out in the open, especially online. When there's a vacuum of official information in a case like this, something else always rushes in to fill that space. And in this case, a whole parallel story started to build, fueled by theories, speculation, and a phenomenon we see more and more these days. The magazine The Walrus actually did a really fascinating deep dive on this, talking about the rise of online sleuth. These are basically amateur investigators who get online and just dissect every single piece of information they can find. They're scrutinizing interviews, picking apart family statements, building their own theories. And while they might think they're helping, the reality is it can often do the opposite. It can actually hinder the police and put this incredible pressure on families who are already living a nightmare. And this creates this fundamental conflict, right? On one side, you have the RCMP, who have to be careful and deliberate. They can't release information because it could tip someone off or compromise the whole case. But on the other side, you have the family and the public, who are just desperate for answers. And it's in that gap, that silence, where all the frustration and speculation starts to bubble up, and it's often aimed right at the people at the heart of the tragedy. A criminologist named Michelle Genies, who is quoted in that article from The Walrus, really hit the nail on the head. She talked about the insane pressure this creates. I mean, there's no manual for how to go through something like this, to have your family suddenly thrown into the national spotlight, where every word, every gesture is analyzed. As she puts it, nobody knows how to act right. Now everyone can talk about you. And you have to remember, this intense spotlight doesn't just shine on the family. It casts this long shadow over the entire community of Pictou County, which has basically been living under a microscope for months on end. Robert Parker, who's the warden of Pictou County, shared this perspective with The Walrus. He said that to the outside world, it can start to feel like a TV show, but he reminds us that for the people who actually live there, this is a very, very real tragedy. These are their neighbors, their friends, their community. The impact on that community is just, it's deep and it lasts. There's this feeling of unease that's settled over the whole area. Parents are more worried now, about letting their kids play outside alone. Residents feel this weight of being watched by outsiders. And at the end of the day, there's this shared feeling that without answers about what happened to Lily and Jack, the community can never really, truly find peace. And that really leaves us with this final critical question. When a tragedy like this leaves a giant void of information, what rushes in to fill it? In the case of Lily and Jack Sullivan, that void has been filled by a massive police investigation, by a community's fear and hope, and by a firestorm of online speculation. But what's still missing are the answers, and the two little children at the very center of it all.